My name's Nicole. My business is Love Work Pilates. On social media, I have like two handles. I'm Love Work Pilates, where I share my Pilates content, and Love Work Nick. That page is on a hiatus of sorts because I feel that I need to be taking more of a stand on there. Like that's not a, like that isn't the place for. That's a place where I have a sizable following, and I feel a responsibility to use that following not to sell products anymore. So I really want to start sharing more information. I'm a scholar, I know what I'm talking about, So I think that with all this misinformation going on and my passion for Black female empowerment and everything else that I do, I think it's an avenue for me to kind of go about my activism a little bit differently with more intention. So.
Nice. So before you were selling more, like using it to like leverage that to sell products, etc.
I
Before?
mean, it just wasn't just that. I mean, I was basically, like the whole like free taste work model. So, here's some leggings, put a photo for that, and I really wasn't saying much of anything. I don't know if and then with the fact that the QAnon and the Capitol, and while I think that silence is being complicit. And like I said, I have a sizable following. I'm a Black woman. I do this research, and I was trying to kind of just appeal to the widest audience possible. And there's benefit to that, but it's also I saw this meme the other day. Like I wasn't put on earth to be a social media influencer. I was put on earth for what I'm here to do, So
Yes. I honestly, don't you feel like I said that yesterday in my intro that we go through this process, and now Pilates, we're talking Pilates for a second here.
Yeah.
Now you go through this process where you do your undergrad, or you do your certification, you become a teacher, and then you want to be a teacher trainer, and then you want to have a studio, and then you want to do this and travel the world, and then you want to have 100,000 followers so people can look at you. It's almost like that's the crowning glory, to have social media influence in a sense, right? That we get confused with that fame for actual influence, or that fame for like riches in a sense. Like that seems to be the paramount of all we do.
I agree. Like even in my teacher training program, we had all like started accounts and we're trying to share, with like that kind of just point of view, and that's one way to go about it. But then also with COVID happening, it kind of put like the pressure that we all have, like if no one's going to see us, if we don't share online, so then that put an added emphasis to it, because now we're all virtual beings. I mean, I live in California, so most things are shut down. So, so it's hard, So even in the past year, with all the time and spaciousness, I found myself putting more time into my account, because like what else am I doing, and then like they showed the QAnon stuff, like the positive reinforcement you get, you want more positive reinforcement, and then like we're not teaching that much, so I've become like kind of like I just do Pilates on the internet. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yes. So what do you think is the best formula for that? Like, because I've been wrestling with that from the perspective of how hyper local do I get in terms of the people I physically see, and how global do I get with, mediums like this as well? Like, where do you think is the sweet spot for us?
I don't know, because I don't know. I think honestly a little bit of most, but you have to decide like what the social media is for. Because I thought about that, like I don't really have people who don't know much about, like on my Pilates page, like most of my followers are like Pilates professionals, So it's just kind of like a insular, we're just kind of all talking to one another. And that there's benefits to that. Like I've learned so much, and I can connect with so many phenomenal instructors, especially now in lockdown. I'm taking classes with Juan, and it's just like, it's so, like it's created a lot of opportunities. So I found like, I know Pilates instructors all over the world, so I've found like a lot of benefit to that. But, So I guess mostly like for Pilates friends, I haven't really pivoted to like finding clients online, but, but Pilates friends I'm here for.
Well, you're kind of busy too with your whole like.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're studying? You're in your first year of this program?
Yeah, I'm doing my PhD in communication at USC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a PhD.
No big deal. So I'm in my second semester. It's all online. So like my entire existence is online. And then I study online stuff too. So it's like pretty inescapable. my research deals with online health communities
Ah,
and online health movements. Right now, I don't have a Peloton, but I'm interested in Peloton, and I'm also putting together an article about Black Girl Pilates. So my
mm,
research is very close to my heart, and I get some pushback from that from the academy, but I don't really care. I'm going like I know what I'm here to do. So
absolutely.
yeah,
PH Diva, as Michelle says. Get to work.
yeah.
Yes. Sonia's in the room too. So,
Hey, Sonia.
yeah, so your peeps are here, my people. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what does that mean in terms of like your actual, like, do you have your thesis set that you're diving into at this point, or you're still formulating that?
I'm still formulating that. I have like more just kind of like baskets, but I know that I'm a critical scholar, which means I totally like I'm deconstructing power systems, knowledge systems. I'm resisting status quo. The longer I'm in school, I feel myself becoming more anti-capitalist. That whole like liberalization is happening, and I was already progressive to begin
It's
with.
creeping in,
And
eh?
I was already progressive to begin with. So now I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm so I'm so yeah, critical scholar definitely. And like I said, I study health cultures. I'm not necessarily, I don't consider myself a public health scholar, even though I
Okay.
am, but it positions me into being quantitative and numbers and outcomes, and that's all very important, but that's not what I do. I
Yes.
feel statistics have a tendency to emphasize difference. And a lot of these studies that you see to talk about Black women's
Mm,
health and disparaging light were actually byproducts of other studies that focus on other things. And they just had data left over. And like, let's get another paper published from it, you
yes,
know?
and just
So,
interpret it in our favor, basically.
yeah, or just to say, oh, like, like, and I feel that, like, while there's a lot of um, systemic violence that we're experiencing, there's
Mm,
also hope and there's also movement and there's also, like the academy, for me, and there's we're in it together. And I think that community and movement are, in my opinion, or like my scholarly opinion, like two of the
yes.
things I find hope in. So I want to see that through a little bit more.
That is fascinating. That really is fascinating to me. Because now, like you're saying, there's leftover data that they're using. What do you like? Do you want to go back and look at that data and interpret it in a way that voices are heard? Or are you trying to take off in a different direction?
There's a kind of this idea that numbers can really, numbers lie. You can get a data set, run a study, pull people, and you can kind like it
Manipulate
they're
it.
yeah, and they have like this gold standard, like, oh, it's statistics, like the statistic, and like they really don't mean much of anything. I mean, they're a good way to get attention, but at the end of
Hmm.
the day, like, they don't do anything to help actual people. And I
Yes.
think that if we're just a lot of the academy and public health, they create interventions just based upon these studies without really talking to people, without
Hmm.
doing more like ethnographic methods, like what's going on, and like instead
Yes.
of just taking your own experiences, running a study, and then creating intervention for a community
Hmm.
little to nothing about. And I don't think that you have to be like a Black person to do this work, but there is a level of self-reflexivity and of awareness and of knowledge. And even as a Black woman coming researching this, I have to always be aware my positionality and the power dynamic, because I have a number of
Yes.
privileges. I'm a scholar, I'm at university money and such, and like
Hmm.
I am a Black woman, but I'm also like, I have to just, it's an ongoing process of being just aware and making sure that I'm not getting ahead of myself and I'm doing this work for the women, for others, because even though it's me, like, I'm kind of on the back end of it. That's kind of how.
Right. So what are those other things you need to check? Like you were just saying, like, being a scholar, all those different things. So what are you conscious of when you walk into those situations?
Just that there might be some resistance. There's a history of abuse with researchers, with
Mm,
underserved communities. And
yes.
even though I'm a Black woman, especially now that I'm just a student, like, I represent USC, and USC is located in South Central. And
Hmm.
there's a number of issues with just that in of itself, and the way the on campus people police the surrounding areas and such. So even just with that, so just doing research, like just being really clear and doing research for people. Like, I can go in with a research agenda, like just hey, I'm doing a study of Black Girl Pilates. I have an idea in my head of all these things, but it's this ongoing process that they get to set the agenda just as much as I do. Like, what's important to you?
To
Okay.
you.
what's,
Gotcha.
I think, I mean, it's not just doing like Black Girl Pilates or things. I think any research project, I think there's like a lack of research ethics in general. Like,
Mm.
people want to get published, people want to get acclaim. I mean, it's like,
Yep.
yeah, the academic influencer path, but
Yes.
ultimately, like, like they
It's
hate that.
everywhere, right? Like, yeah.
but
Yeah.
but like, what are we really here for? And that's why I went back. Like, I went back to create like health interventions to help
Hmm.
solve, like to help Black women like myself, because I who aren't as fortunate. Like, I found Pilates, I could afford lessons, I became a teacher, and all of that. But that's not, I don't think, realistic for a lot of people, for beyond finances and time and stuff. Like,
Right.
I just stopped my life for 14 months and went to a Pilates training program. Like, that's insane to me. I couldn't do that now,
Right.
so it was a
Yes.
very special time that I had
Mm.
that opportunity.
Yes. So I'm just reading some comments here. It's listening to people and taking their thoughts on board as well as your conclusions.
Yes, that's part of the process. I haven't like fully executed like a research project yet. Right now, I'm writing mostly proposals, but yeah, it makes the process much more involved, because you have to, like, even when I'm done, like, it almost is, you're never done, because you're supposed to take the data back to the community, and it's not just data. You write it in a way that's colloquial, that people understand. You're not just writing
Yes.
for other academics. So again, like, I'm always trying to avoid that, the ivory tower. I'm not interested in that. Like, I want to be able to participate and then
Hmm.
take what I can, like, out to the public. I really want to be a
Absolutely.
public facing scholar.
I remember Brad Dockery is one of my guests early last year, and he's in economics. So he talks about Black economics.
Hmm.
And even though he was looking at from the economics perspective as opposed to academia, he was really strong in saying there's a difference between data and information.
Hmm.
And data is just data, but then how it's translated and put out is the other thing. So what do we do with that? What is the information we get from that data can be skewed and set to whatever people want to hear. So I kind of hear that in what you're saying there as well, is that people have used it in the past for harm and you want to
Yeah.
use it for good.
Yeah, I mean, for an economist, it makes sense that he, like, still has a little bit of trust in data because he's an
Hmm. Hmm.
economist. I'm a critical
Yes.
cultural scholar. Throw it all out. Let's
Okay.
start
like
it.
like olive.
Throw it all out. Let's start
What?
over.
Okay.
The system is designed. I mean, yeah. It's
That's fair.
I think that data in of itself, and then you see these companies, like, everyone's collecting data, and like, data is like this invaluable thing, and it's the kind of like the ways of the, like, it's a tool of hegemony and of kind of control, and the more data you have, the more power
Yes.
you have. So I
That's
mean, there's
Nicole, that's
value,
fascinating.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's talk to that. Look, can we talk a little bit about that? Because
Yeah.
if I am a Black person who is not really well educated in economics or academia to this
Hmm.
level,
Hmm.
I can sit here on social media and read Black Wealth Matters and Black economists and this and
Hmm.
data, 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 and then you're saying no, throw all that out. What do I do with that?
And that's, I think that it's just, there's just too much. I don't know, because like, there is a value to them. Like I said, they get people's attention, and but it's almost like I'm taking this stats class right now, and I really enjoy our textbook, and it's like approaching things from an ethical standpoint, and the fact that numbers aren't this all like holy grail of things, but ultimately
Hmm.
their number one reason for going forth and continuing using quantitative methods is they're prevalent, and I think
Yes.
that that's, I want to, like, I mean, I'm not an economist, like, they're like, if I
Hmm.
was, like, that numbers have meaning, or it's like, I
Hmm.
mean, but I think that that's also a responsibility of the scholar, and including the economist, to
Yeah.
write public
Right.
facing, and there is value to, like, a number one of those platforms you said, because they try their best to take really, like, nuanced concepts and put them in a way for
And
people to
then
understand.
normalize it. Yeah.
But then ultimately, not but then they become a gatekeeper, and then their perspective and their lens,
Yes.
so you have to,
Yes.
you have to have a critical kind of eye for, like, what, like, where are they coming from? What are they thinking about? Like, what position do they
Yes.
kind of take? Because I think that's important. And it doesn't mean what they're saying is wrong, but it's just
Mm.
you have a better understanding of the lens through which they're coming through. Like, when I read a paper, like, when I'm done, like, I'm going to talk a lot about, like, the underserved communities, and even if
Mm.
it was just like one section of the paper, like, that's the part that I'm going to take away from it. So I think
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like academics and scholars are humans, and I think there's been, humans with hearts and sentiments, and there's been this idea that, oh, you can be objective, and being objective fixes everything, and that's
Mhm.
what I think in particular when you throw out the idea that you can ever be objective. That's
Right,
not real. And
right.
even if you have numbers, you're still not objective, And I think
Yes, right.
just be
Yeah.
aware of the lens. I think that's really all we can do.
That's helpful. And you think about from the Pilates world, this is a biggest stereotype coming right now, but we're usually not numbers people. We're in this human being touchy feely Pilates space because we're not looking at numbers and crunching numbers like we would be in some kind of math. So when I hear that data stuff, it's easy to trust that gatekeeper with that data.
Mm-hmm.
The question then becomes is like, what questions do we ask of information that we see coming at us in all these different things, right? Like it's almost like a person who's doing Pilates for the first time. We don't want to just give them a good workout. We want them to understand what a good workout looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So like, are the questions that we need to be asking of information that we're being fed?
Okay, so I don't want to feed too much into like the Pilates contemporary thing.
No, no, no.
But
Okay.
if you were to, but you know how classical people, we always are referring to Joe. Joe did this, so that's how we feel that we get, or our proximity to someone that knows Joe. But it's
Yes.
very similar in the academy, because it's just citing
Hmm.
your references. I learned this from
Yes.
Chris Robinson, or I learned this from Martin or Sonia. And it's not. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's the right thing to do is to cite your references, especially on social media. And it's just
Hmm.
tagging who you got the information from. We think of it
Yes.
as. So I'm going to call it cite your work, but
Setting.
I think
Right.
it's. I mean, your content creators beyond like retrieving the information took time to make the graphic and such. So like cite them, look at their page. Like don't just get something and share it and not have any idea where it's
Hmm.
coming from. I'm not trying to say the person needs to have thousands of followers or know Jay Grimes or anything, but just see if that person resonates with you.
Right.
It's like is a person that I would want to take a class with. I mean
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Like don't.
Yes.
I think that a lot of us are like, especially now, there's so much fear, and it's very easy to find something that appeals to our emotions because that's what they do on social. I mean, not just
No.
that the
That's
algorithm, like
marketing, right?
yeah, it's not us. It's like
No.
marketing, and the algorithm and stuff is trying to appeal to our emotions and show us things that make us feel.
Yes.
So I think that yeah, just yeah, clicking on the page, looking at what else they're saying and whom else
Yes.
they're in
Yes.
conversation with, and that's something that we do in the academy all the time. So I don't think
Right.
it's any different.
That makes sense. So Ferbert right there, that's my brother, and he like I guess because we're brothers, they ask the same questions like, what do we do with this information, right? So that's his question right there, and yeah, I think you answered that. That's true. Can we switch gears to Pilates for a
Yeah,
second?
of course.
So how did you find Pilates? You're such an amazing mover. Like I just look at your
Oh, thank you.
posts and like everything is just silky smooth, and you just really move well. But how did you find Pilates initially?
Um, I actually haven't been doing it for that long. I think it was like 2017-ish around the holidays.
Mhm.
I was just kind of really bouncing back from, not from, but the symptoms of hyperthyroidism. So having like excessive weight gain and lethargy, and finally got my medicine right and was ready to get moving. And I was at the gym, and I was like a lifelong athlete. So I was always, lifting weights and running and just kind of like that very 90s neoliberal way of working out.
Yes.
And I heard
Love how he slid that in there.
very 90s.
Yes.
But then I think I ran into a woman. I was looking for the Pilates studio because where I was a member at, I did my training at Equinox, and I was a member there,
Okay.
and they give you a free lesson. So I went, and like I was looking for the Pilates studio, and it happens at the Marina Del Rey location. It's like hidden. So if you're looking really, go find it because they're amazing. So then I like went
Yes.
I found them, and Allison was like sitting outside. She's like, "Oh, you want to do Pilates?" And yeah. So then we connected, and she happened to be a classical instructor, and it was like the holiday season. So I just
Mhm.
started going all the time. I went like 3 times a week, and I mean that's what I did for the holidays because I didn't
Oh,
travel that
nice.
year.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think like only a few months later, I was in a teacher training program, which was insane. I was learning the system, like learning how to do the system and learning how to teach the system simultaneously, and it was very, very challenging.
Yes.
It exacerbated my back pain. Oh yeah, I did Pilates because my back hurt. And then the
Okay.
teacher, and then the teacher training didn't help. Like I saw like how the work could help, but at the
Right.
intensity that I was
You just
doing,
dove
and
in way
it
too
was,
fast.
I could see it, but
Yeah.
yeah. So then I ended up not actually ever teaching for Equinox. I did my
Is
teacher
it?
training program and interviewed, and it just didn't work out. So then
Mhm.
I started interviewing at studios, and then kind of like you said, that numbers thing in LA, Pilates is kind of a numbers game. Like just there's really big studios, and
Yes.
then there's a lot of McGraw offerings and a lot of contemporary offerings. And coming from a classical program, I was like, oh shit, like there's so many people in here, you know. So
Hmm.
it was really, I mean, just and then alone, and then just kind of like being so set in the repertoire, it was really challenging for me to I didn't get a job at any of those places. And then
Wow. Yeah.
Allison, there's only a handful of classical studios in LA. And then Allison, my comp instructor, was
Mhm.
working at a studio, and she brought me in. And then and then I worked there for about 6 months. I was just assisting in the studio. I really wasn't teaching yet because I almost felt like I was kind of like apprenticing part two,
Yes.
but apprenticing part, but it was fun. I
Yeah.
learned so much. I met
I was
so
gonna
many
say
people.
you learned so much in that
I
context for
met
sure.
so many people. It was a Jay Grimes studio. I met him my second day. I mean, Miguel, I mean, the superstars were there.
Right.
So it was really incredible to train with them and to watch them teach. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it was invaluable.
That's
And then
such a
I
rich
got it,
experience for
and then
sure.
I got added to the schedule about this time last year, and
Okay.
then everything shut down. So that's so I've been thinking about that. I was like, oh, I was almost a Pilates teacher, but
Oh, that's
so that's my
yeah.
Pilates journey. But I was super grateful that I have a reformer,
Mhm.
and I've been quarantined for the last year. So I've really just been kind of quarantined my reformer, taking advantage of doing virtual lessons and
Yes.
filming and just finding more of a flow and more of an ease. And once I stopped doing my teacher training program, my back stopped hurting, like just like the Pilates like did its magic,
It's too
So
funny. My guess with your athletic background that you might be a little bit competitive with yourself too, and that might have had something to do with it.
yeah, I would imagine
I
too.
imagine. Okay. Let's be real. Yes.
Yeah. I'm also not really good about like not being good at things, and
Hmm.
there's really no space. I mean, there's no space for that at Pilates, but like I was that person. I was just like frustrated. Like, I mean, that I just wasn't just naturally like just gifted at Pilates or just at that point I already had two master's degrees. Like I was just totally coming in with not like with a different skill set. And then Pilates like challenged me in a way that I was able to avoid in school. Like I can,
Yes.
having to, in school, you prepare, you present, but
Hmm.
Pilates, like you're
There's a
working with a
formula.
person, and yeah, and then you learn the formula, and the formula doesn't really
Doesn't work here.
mean much,
Yes.
so like
Yeah. Yeah.
just a Virgo academic like me, I'm like, huh? So there's been like,
Hmm.
I've
I
had
love
to show
that.
myself a lot of grace, and
Yes.
yeah.
That's, I'm sure people are watching just like, don't you love when people walk into your studio? Like for watching like, that walk in and they have everything like so linear and they're probably overachievers somewhere else
Hmm.
and they just don't get this on their first day.
Yeah.
And you know that they're gonna come back because they just want to just nail that exercise that they couldn't figure out on day one. Like I love those moments and seeing those wheels turn and seeing them come back because it's you versus you in this moment.
Yeah, and I think that's also why like kind of learning Pilates at the first like at Equinox was particularly interesting because the environment is relatively like it's different than your normal Pilates studio, because you
Okay.
have that whole gym element and there's working out
Yes.
and like people are coming in the studio who want to do Pilates to like balance, oh, sorry, a cat's coming, balance out their other workouts and stuff. So and then that Equinox energy, like when
Yes.
you're a member at Equinox, like you're like Team Equinox. So I felt that was possibly important to get me through my teacher training
Possibly.
program, possibly. And then
Possibly.
also because I was driving all over. Like I've been, to, I mean, I was go at one point I was going out to Westlake Village, which is about an hour away from LA to train with Philip. I mean, I was just like I really took advantage of being at
Yeah.
Equinox and I've trained on peak equipment. I can teach on peak balanced body or Grotz equipment, like
Hmm.
because I trained at Equinox, which I think is
Yeah.
really unique. I think they've mostly switched over to Grotz, but I was there at a unique moment where I got a lot of experience.
Yes. Very cool. Yeah, in my background, like working at Lifetime, very similar, right? Like you're part of a
Mm-hmm.
bigger fitness community,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a good thing because sometimes we get caught up in this Pilates world, like it's like this little narrow column or the silo, and we forget that that's part of the greater fitness community or the greater movement community
Mm-hmm.
at a, at a whole. So yes, Equinox, Lifetime, places that have it as part of their kind of another one of their offerings
Mm-hmm.
that helps us to understand like what the real world is like and the fact that Pilates is part of the greater fitness community. And it could be Pilates, it could be kettlebells, it could be
Mm-hmm.
spinning, whatever. It's all fitness, it's all
Mm-hmm.
movement, right? I think we get really locked into this Pilates world and then we get locked into our classical or contemporary, and then we get locked
Mm-hmm.
into this lineage. Like it gets narrower and narrower, and I think that we need to continue to fight against that to keep the conversation as broad as possible from a
Mm-hmm.
movement perspective.
Yeah. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like I was saying in my in our messages, like Pilates, breathwork, spinning, like they're tools. You know, they're not the. I mean, maybe if you're a practitioner, you know, there's different goals, but like
Yes.
even if you're a practitioner, they're modalities meant to help you feel better, move with ease. You know, like, and
Yes.
there's a number of things that can also help you do that. And for me, it might be different. Like someone else might like running.
Yes.
No, 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 no. For me, you know,
Right.
but like, I'm not
Yes.
gonna like, you know, that you only do Pilates. Like,
Yeah.
no, like my cardiovascular health is really good too, you know. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's really
No,
important to just,
I
yeah.
I feel you on that because I mean, like people say all the time, like, "Oh, you should do an Ironman." No, like I'll train you for it. Oh, you should be doing Spartan games. Like, nah, like like that sort of thing. So yeah, exactly. But for someone, that's it, right? So how do we
Mhm,
continue to support people with all the different modalities?
mhm.
When we're talking about meditation and breath work, I've had people on here that say that I suck at meditation. I can do it for 3 seconds and then I'm out. I can do it for a minute and I can't. I sign up for an hour
It's
meditation
like,
and then 7 minutes and I just can't do it. What is it about meditation that works for you, and how do you get people connected to it?
don't sign up for an hour class at for you know like
Okay.
like I know people and this is who we are. We're competitive people who like overachievers bunch, and you know people hear about meditation and then they go to a silent meditation retreat for 3 days. No, 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 no. It's like Pilates. You don't want to start with the most advanced exercise. Like even though you're just sitting there, a lot comes up. And for us, like just North American people, and even not just people in general, we're just constantly moving and going. And then like
Yes.
meditation is the opposite of that. And kind of how I said Pilates challenged me in new ways. I think meditation's the same way. We're all really good at getting up and going, but what happens when we just like get still? So
Stop.
I want to
Yeah.
acknowledge that it is really hard and a lot can come up. Cognitive dissonance is very real. Like teachers in front of you saying you should be calm, but your mind's going, and that's not like that's doesn't feel good, you know. And I acknowledge that. I think it's really important to start where you're at, and people that's such a cliche, but to start with like three big breaths or just start with a minute
Yes.
and then
Hmm.
try a minute for 4 weeks, you know, and like don't feel bad that you only
That
did a
long?
minute, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just you don't need to like when you feel ready to do two or three, then you do two or three. But I'm a bit like in my classes with Pilatesology, I'm always encouraging like people to just take three big reset breaths. Like and there, I mean, it just it makes you feel better, and I think that that's a meditation. I think that closing your eyes on the reformer during footwork and being really intentional and during that practice could be meditation, you know. Like I think that it's important to bring it into your own life. Breathing works for me because it helps me like focus on something, you know, and like I can,
Yes.
you know, like I'm still doing, you know. So that's but
Right.
I find that breath work can be really activating. I mean, even just sitting still can be really activating. So and trauma and like there's just so much going on. So I think start small and slow and start where you're at, breathing or just
Hmm.
washing the dishes with really intention, just noticing. Like I feel that
Yes.
meditation's the practice of cultivating like a greater awareness, you know? So when you're
Yes.
running around, you're like, no, like there the world's going crazy, but I think I'm good, you know, like that like
Hmm.
that. So that's what I encourage in my meditation classes, and they're all like 10, 15 minutes because I agree, like an hour is a long time.
Yeah, yeah. That it's almost like you just gave people permission to start where they're at. with that, you know, because it's true. Like if you think about it, if we're going back to the same kind of competitive mindset that we have, many times when we go at these things, we think, okay, I have to succeed at this. I'm
Mm,
not going to succeed, so I'm not going to do it at all. And if you like level the threshold of what it takes to be successful,
mm.
I could take 3 big breaths. Let's see, let's see how that feels. You
Yeah.
know, like just reading, haha, I'm watching just as listening to you guys. There you go. And how would you define mindfulness in that conversation around breathwork meditation? Like where does mindfulness tie into that?
I feel that what I was saying was a little bit more mindfulness because
Yeah, yeah,
meditation comes from an ancient practice with multiple lineages and multiple masters, and the masters have a particular practice, and you do that. I mean, it's very hierarchical kind of like meditation, and then there's
okay.
vinyasa. I mean, there's different thoughts. So I feel like mindfulness is just a more just open, like this me like I
Dare we
mean
say
meditation is a part of it. I would even say Pilates, like the way I do
as is
Pilates is a part.
contemporary? Like dare we say it's contemporary meditation?
Contemporary.
Yes.
I because I also feel like mindfulness can to a certain degree is like it can be secular. It's like for people who have like a religious like people who are religious, they can
Yes.
participate in mindfulness and not feel that it's contradicting
It's
like
infringing on their
their
spirituality.
spiritual practices, because
Yeah, yeah.
mindfulness, like, it does have a spiritual element, but it's cultivating awareness, which is pretty spiritual, but like don't say, just like, we can keep that under wraps, but I
Right.
feel like
Yes.
mindfulness, because I feel like even just like intention is like the key to mindfulness, because I feel like even a lot of therapists are bringing it in, and like treatment centers are starting to do like incorporate mindfulness
Are they?
activities. So
Mm,
it's yeah, it's really powerful, and I feel that the science, I mean, even though we talked about numbers and such, but like the science will kind of back it up too, which I think people like, like, oh, like this study says that like breathing helps, like, there's lots of studies that say like breathing positively helps your
yes.
mood, and I like that I
Right.
can talk to a room full of like overachiever cynics. I'm like, no, this will help you, I promise, like
Yeah.
that kind
Yes.
of
Yeah. Yeah. So do you run a lot of these classes, or is that just an online thing, or like how do you run your breathing class?
With Pilatesology twice a month. We're
Okay.
doing it next Wednesday and then the third Saturday of this month. Yeah, it's on Instagram Live. It's free,
Okay. Perfect.
and yeah, it's like a sound bath, mindfulness kind of blend. And I typically share some straightforward practices, and we'll do about 10 minutes of breathing and then 10 minutes of sound. So we recently added the sound element to it too, which is
Mm,
fun for me, and I think people enjoy it because like we talk about like I doing, but I also want to give my clients time and to just be. And I think that the sound bath part
yes.
is a good part of that.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit more about the sound bath piece? So for those who may not be familiar with that phrase, and while you're saying that, I have to grab my charger because my
It's
phone's like
okay.
telling me it's about to die. So
It's
I
okay.
can hear you, but just keep talking.
Well, I'm actually not. I mean, I guess I am a sound practitioner because I do it, but I play like four crystal bowls that are like have different like note frequencies, and depending on they're associated in ancient practices with different like meridians or different parts of your body. And
Okay.
even if you don't believe that, it just sounds really nice, and it's like ooh, and like so yeah, and
So it
it's
sounds
really
cool even if you
relaxing.
don't subscribe to it.
Even if you don't subscribe to it, it's just really relaxing, and it's really
Mm-hmm.
just like it's. I know in person they were becoming a little bit more popular, and like I don't like in person I miss it because it's almost like a big slumber party because everyone shows up with their blankets and their pillows, and I'm not a practitioner for
Nice.
these.
Yeah.
Like just on
Yeah.
the internet, you show up and a lady, like a beautiful woman in like billowy gowns, like, ah, like it's so
Wow.
LA, but I love it. It's so LA. I took my
Yeah.
grandmother; she was not a fan.
She's not feeling it. Oh, too, yeah, it's a little bit too out there.
She was not feeling it, but she's happy
Man,
I'm doing this, so it's all
yes. Well,
good.
grandmother's love. What can you say?
Yeah.
We really haven't even touched on like women's empowerment. We talked about some amazing things, except like within the health perspective. What is your pain point with that? What are you so passionate about within that? Because like I think we were saying before, like I'm really passionate about that from like men's empowerment and men
Hmm.
doing Pilates and men being able to feel and to emote and all these different things. And so I love when I have people like you in the room that speaks of women's empowerment. So
Hmm.
please go.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I alluded to it a little bit. Like I mean, the primary way that I do it now, particularly that I'm a scholar, is just pursuing ethical research for and about Black women that's not about me, that actually helps people. And that's
Yes.
the primary way. I'm also, the one statistic I do float around is just the fact that Black women are dying of preventable illnesses at an alarming rate. And I got this from like
Yes.
from the Girl Trek organization. That just doesn't sit right with me. And then that
Mm.
statistics and learning about that, and that a talk from Girl Talk, on Girl Talk, and it's on TED Talks. Sorry, that's but
Gotcha.
it really inspired me to just get moving, and it was like really the catalyst for me doing the Pilates teacher training and such. And like I just acknowledged that I have a lot of privileges, and I want to do the same for others. But now I
Mm.
teach this really really expensive practice. So like, how do I go about that? And then I'm also a classical instructor, so like, and I don't, and I, so it's just I want to. So yeah, I guess this is through my research and then through like just visibility, and that's why I share so many videos of myself doing the play because I'm a bigger woman. I just feel that it's just yeah, just like I center Black women in all that I do.
Yes.
And I
I love
feel
it.
that like maybe right now, like I'm in virtual land and like obviously I teach so many people, but it's just
Mhm.
that's when I kind of lose who I am, like that's when I can like that's like kind of like my center point. But I feel like it's mostly through my research right now and then through the Pilates and like I have this dream of like one day having like a community center, like we all teach our classes and they come and they learn and we're tutoring and like I wanna
Mhm.
I wanna be a researcher, but I also like I feel really passionate about just yeah, this place one day. It's hard to get emotional thinking about it. That just existing for people to come and it's free and everyone can move and connect and it's not white stuff. It's just it feels good and it's all of ours. It's human, you know, it's all it's for
Yes.
everyone. And
Yes.
I think that that's my that's what I like to do.
I hear you. It's beautiful, and that's exactly it. So it's like you're one with all of your videos and images and video of the things that you're doing. You're normalizing pliers. You're making it accessible for people and normalizing your experience with it. So it's not just one corner of humanity that's able to do it. Even though our teaching, our education is so specialized, we want to
Hmm.
broaden that as much as we can.
Hmm.
And then like the academia side of it is
Hmm.
just so fascinating for me, and I think that it's going to, um, yeah, that's going to have a huge impact. It already is. Like I love these conversations for that. Like I never really thought about the fact of preventable disease that Black women are dying of, and
Hmm.
putting a spotlight on that. Like, that's something I will research after this. I'll be
Hmm.
looking. I'll be speaking about that for the rest of the week actually, because that makes me think, okay, well, what does that mean? And then I would layer in also, what does that mean in Canada? What does that mean for where I am right now? What can I do as a Black man in this Pilates space to support what you are doing?
Hmm.
So those are my questions that come out of what you're saying. So not that you have to answer them right now. I just
Yeah.
I just thinking that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good. And there's Kara. If you have any questions for my friend, please put them out here. I just also just reading through some of the comments that flew through here earlier and just mentioning that. Very good. Awesome. So then what's next for you? So we have these 4 years. So at the we have your classes that you're doing on physiology. So that's where we
Hmm.
get our breathing in. Are you teaching any other online classes at all, or?
No, not yet, but I would like to. I think I would like to start teaching like a kind of combo Pilates breathing class once a month. So I said it
Mhm.
on here, so now I have to be accountable. I was just talking to a friend about that earlier, but I think it's I think yeah, I think it's time. I think I'm ready. I was teaching much more breathing because I felt like that was needed, and now I would like to kind of bring the two together,
Mhm.
and then hopefully like I'm ready to be in person again. Like I mean I am just I'm ready. Yeah, whenever like it's safe and like people are open to it. Like I really, really, really miss the studio and miss
And
just clients and like I said, like I feel like it just like I was just about to do it and then outside
yes.
closed. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I hope to definitely like be actively teaching Pilates while in school, like this time next year. Can we call that in? Like, can we
Sure.
call that?
Yes, we
Can we
can.
call that in? Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Like that,
Thank
it's
you so much.
really good. It just really provoked me to start thinking some more about, those issues. Like this is why I love having these different conversations. We look at things differently, and that's all good stuff.
Yep, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone who is listening today. And Nicole, I'll send you the replay of this later.
Okay.
And yeah, if there's anything else you want to put in the comment section for people where they can find you or when your classes are, please put it in the comment section as well, and we'll cheer you on.
All right. Thanks you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Great. Thank you, everybody.